Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and to my first hair tutorial of the year and the first one since 2017. Thank you so much for everyone's feedback on my last video about why I had to take a little bit of a break from YouTube last year, but I am back, I'm in full swing, and I'm going to bring to you today the most requested video I think that I've had so far, recently anyway, and that is a tutorial on how I do my bendy roller or flexi rod sets, and I'm going to be doing a brush out as well, of course. So if you have watched a lot of my videos, then you probably will have seen one that I did back in 2017, and it was my first impressions of a bendy roller. And in that video, I tried it for the very first time, and there are a few little hiccups. And then bend. Whoop! Is that meant to happen? Uh-oh. Is that it? I guess that's it. But it has actually become my preferred method. I use them predominantly over a foam roller set. I do some foam roller sets still, but only very occasionally and only if I'm wanting something quite loose. Now if you don't know what a bendy roller is, then they look like these things. I think the technical term is called a flexi rod. So if you are planning on trying to find them on like eBay or Amazon, then flexi rod might be the best search term. I just call them bendy rollers because it's like the real literal word for them because they literally bend. That's just my preferred name. So these little guys are really good for getting quite a tight set. They do have some pros and cons which I'm going to touch upon. First tip in terms of how to find them, these are honestly just like, I went to Poundland, my local Poundland when I was still living in London, and these are the ones that they had. Now, you should be able to find them in places like $2 stores if you're in New Zealand or Australia, you know, Sally's Salon Supplies if you're in the UK or the USA, and again eBay and Amazon. The one benefit that I do like about these particular bendy rollers that I got from Poundland is that they are a little bit on the shorter side. Sometimes when I see them, they can be like another kind of couple of inches longer, which I just find can end up making the head be a bit crowded with just stuff, like it just, because you don't really need them to be that long. So I'm going to pop the measurements down in the description box for the ones that I use, just if you want to refer back to that. I'll also try and take a little diameter kind of measurement of the size that I am using, but basically I do use them quite small. So before we get started, I do just want to cover like some of the pros and cons. So we'll start with the cons of a flexi roller, and that is like the main con is that they are very uncomfortable to sleep in. So if you are someone who has done a bit of foam roller setting or dabbled in it and maybe found it too uncomfortable, then I can pretty much guarantee you aren't going to enjoy sleeping in these. They are just that a little bit firmer, they're not kind of like quite as squishy, and they just kind of, I find they tend to pull on my hair a little bit more, so I might have one or two that maybe feels like it's rolled too tight and it kind of yanks on my hair or something when I roll over. So definitely not quite as comfortable to sleep on. The pros though are that because they aren't quite so squishy, you tend to get, I find, just a little bit more of a perfect circular curl. So one of the downsides that I found with a foam roller set is that because they squish down, if you are like a side sleeper, like say I always end up sleeping on my right side. So I would sometimes wake up and the right side would be quite squished and the curls would be kind of this weird oval square shape, which like just doesn't really work for me. I'm not digging that. So these give a bit more of a curl that's typical to say a hot tong set. They're just a lot more perfect. So obviously there is the con to the squishiness, which is they're uncomfortable, but then it kind of works in your favor. So depends on how hard your head is. I think I've just kind of, over the years of doing these kind of overnight sets, I've just become a bit more accustomed to it. But I will give you a few tips later on about how to make them a little bit more comfortable to sleep in. Now, one really big problem that can happen with any kind of overnight setting or wet setting is frizz, and everyone hates the frizz. I think that a little bit of frizz is actually okay. It kind of adds like an authenticity about it, but obviously we don't want it to be like a frizz where your ends have become like this frazzled mess. that is kind of due to either like your technique or the way that you're rolling it. So don't be afraid of a little bit of frizz. You can always sort of tame it down with some pomade or hairspray, but you need to kind of start maybe playing around with the method that you're setting in. For instance, over the last couple of years, I have completely switched from doing like a wet set to starting out completely dry. And the reason being because I find that if I dry it off and I use a brush to kind of smooth it as I'm drying, I can kind of have a slightly more smooth base. And then I can wet it down as I go. But also it means that I can tailor it to how I want the set to turn out a little bit, even though sometimes it has a mind of its own. So for instance, I will usually wash my hair, and if I'm setting it that day or the next day, so it's still pretty clean, I will use a setting spray. So I'll have it dry, but I will spray kind of 2 to 3 spritzes of a setting spray on the hair as I go with each section, and then I might dampen it down with just a little bit of water at the end. As I progress further, so say it's day 4, 5, 6, and I've maybe done a couple of sets and brush outs already, there's residue of hairspray already on the hair, I really don't need to add any more product to hold my sets. So what I'll do is I will literally just roll it completely dry, not spray anything, and then maybe at the end, I will spray a little bit of water. Now, if I wanted to really make sure that that set on that sort of day 4, 5, 6-ish kind of period was maybe a little bit tighter, I would spray more water. If I really wanted it to be quite soft and loose, and I know that there is already plenty of product in my hair, then I wouldn't spray any water. So I really kind of found a little bit of a method to how I want my curls to come out. Again, it sometimes has a mind of its own, but I really encourage you to try and kind of figure things out for yourself, figure out your hair. Everyone's hair is so different. Make notes, you know, like maybe take pictures and write down what exactly you did that day, what day it was, how much hairspray you had in, just so you can figure out what is going to work best for your hair. Okay, so now that I've basically like brain dumped all of the information that I wanted to tell you about setting your hair with these things, I think we can get started. So I'm going to take my Tangle Teaser, start brushing my hair through, and just to let you know, this would be day 3 since I washed it, so it's on the cleaner side, but I have been to the gym once or twice and I have done one hairstyle with it, but I didn't do a huge amount of hairspray, so there's not tons of product. So in this case, I am going to use a setting spray just because I want to make sure that it looks good for my brush out tomorrow when I film it. If I had used maybe a little bit more hairspray with my style that I did yesterday and there was just a lot more residue in there, then I might not worry about the setting spray, I might just go with the water. So I'm going to just brush it all through, make sure there's no knots, and take my tail comb and get my parting. I'm going to go with my usual, just nice deep side part. Right, so I always start at the front. I find it easier just to start here and kind of work my way down. So I'm going to use the end of my comb to take a section at the front here. And you need to be careful that the section isn't too thick. So I find with these rollers, you can take them a little bit wider this way than say a foam roller, just because it's longer, but you do need to be aware that you can't kind of do it too thick this way. Reason being is that as soon as you start to take too much hair and there's too much kind of wound around these rollers, they will really easily slip out. They don't hold it very well. So you may have to do a few more than you're used to if you are used to doing a sponge roller set. And I really encourage you to, once you've kind of got those first sections kind of done, use your hand to really grip that hair and get a feel, get a muscle memory for what that thickness feels like. So that way when you're starting to go to the back and it's a lot harder to section, you can at least kind of feel it and go, okay, that feels like the right amount, or that's quite thick, maybe I need to take a little bit less. So try and get an idea of what a good amount of hair feels like just through muscle memory. Now I'm going to brush everything up and I'm going to use my setting spray. Now this is a new one I've been using the last kind of couple of weeks. My friend Michael in Melbourne developed this. It is Poison Apple Setting Spray. And it is a really nice one. It's nice and soft. I don't like anything too crunchy for this sort of thing, especially when I'm spraying on dry. So Poison Apple Setting Spray, I'm going to do a couple, 3 spritzes. Make sure you comb it through, and do try and do a spritz, not like a really close kind of dollop. You want it to be a nice mist. Comb it up. Just going to get a little bit lower so you guys can see this. Now what I like to do with these particular rollers is hold it around the kind of halfway mark, or sort of 2/3, and I'm going to pinch the hair together. Now we're not doing this. It's a lot harder to roll it when it's all fanned out like this. So just pinch that together like that. I'm going to take my roller. I'm going to place it right here, and what I'm doing is I'm holding, I've got my comb in hand, I'm holding the roller with my thumb underneath. I'm going to use my index finger as a clamp, okay? And then I'm going to use this hand, my left hand, to wind this hair around, clamp, okay? And I'm wrapping this like a ribbon. So it's very important that you are always wrapping it like a ribbon. That's going to give you the more sort of 50s curl. Using the finger to clamp it down, or else it would just all ping out. And then once I've kind of got just a little tuft there, I'm going to pinch with these 2 fingers, roll underneath, use the end of my comb to scoop. So I'm coming up through here and I'm scooping, so that I'm really tucking that hair underneath. And you can have this tension quite tight. So if you are used to sponge rollers, you do have to be careful with the tension, because then the middle kind of dips down. But I find with these, because the surface is a little bit more slippery, you do need to have a touch more tension, and you don't have that same risk of it pushing down. And I'm rolling down, kind of nice and tight. And then this is where I kind of slipped. This is what really confused me when I did the first impressions. You want to bring it sort of the opposite direction of the way that you rolled to kind of secure it. So I was trying to go this way because that seemed to make more sense to me, but it's the opposite way. So that is my first one done. Now with this one, I am going to do this on the side so that you can hopefully see it from a different angle. Bring it up, roller there, wrapping it like a ribbon, using my index finger as a clamp, bring this around. So what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to twist it like this. Can you see that? So what I want you to do is each time you wrap it, you bring it around, you clamp it, you let it go, and you almost sort of use your fingers to kind of flatten it again, so you're always wrapping it like a ribbon. Using both my fingers as clamps, scooping. So coming underneath, and bringing it down like this. One very important thing about this is the direction of the curl. So you've noticed that my parting is here. I'm holding this with my right hand and I'm winding it with my left. So that wind is kind of coming on this side of the roller towards my parting. Now what I have found is that if I do it this way, the curl will come down on the side and it will roll towards the face. As I come to the sides, I find that the best method is to wind it on the end, pointing away from the face. So on this side, I would want to hold it with my left hand, come up and over, and roll it there. This side, roll it this way. So in order for your curls to be coming towards the face for that more 50s style and not kind of away like the 70s, you need to be winding it on the side of the parting and then winding it on the end away from the face. So I've done the back and I've just done the exact same sectioning all the way down the back like a little mohawk, okay, and now I'm going to do the sides, and I usually do 2 sections on the side. I usually do 1 section here, so I start with this front bit and then I just connect those 2 sections together. So now I'm going to be taking horizontal sections going down. So it's basically back, 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 and then down, 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 down. And because I want the hair to be coming towards the face, I'm going to make sure that I'm rolling this end bit away from the face. It's basically the opposite of what you think you should be doing, but it works. Connect the 2 sections with 1 in the middle. And I am going to have to hold it with my left hand. So I'm switching and winding with my right in order to make sure that this side will also be coming towards the face. This will mean that there will be a conflict of direction, but you can decide what you want to do there. So you can either just run with that and just know that you're going to have, you know, the directions kind of meeting up at some point on your head, or you just go one way the entire way around your head and know that this side would not be coming, it would be more kind of coming away from the face in terms of the direction. If that all makes sense. I'm sorry, it's very complicated. There is a science to rolling your hair. This is why I have workshops to teach people. I usually leave these very bottom sections till the end, so I've still got some from this side too, just because I find like you only need to really do kind of 2 across the back there, so I just leave it till the end and just pop 2 in. Done! Now, as I mentioned earlier, I am going to spray it down with a little bit of water just to help really make sure that I get a decent amount of curl. It also helps because this part here is sort of, that's those kind of first couple of inches of your hair. By spraying this down, you're just going to help to kind of really dampen that bit, which is the section of hair that doesn't curl as well because it's way down by the ends. So I'm just going to help to really make sure that there's a good curl in that first kind of couple of inches of hair and make sure there's a bit of a wave. So I've just got a little spray bottle and I'm just going to do a spritz all over, which feels amazing because I'm so hot right now. It is a really, really hot day and I probably should have waited until later in the day to film this because I'm just a hot, sweaty mess. I hope you can't see it on camera. And I'm just using my comb to kind of help to tuck any little frizzies away. I think that feels pretty good. And now I need to wrap. So, tips on making sure that it is going to be as comfortable as possible if you are planning on sleeping with it, is to wrap it in a headscarf. So not only does this help to protect the curls, It is also just going to stop kind of them getting pushed around as much when you move. It just helps to kind of keep everything in there, and I do find it helps with the comfort levels. So fold a nice big scarf, kind of a silky, satiny kind of material is great. Fold it into a triangle, place it around the back, bring it up. Make sure that that middle triangle part is kind of coming up and over through here. I'm going to tie a knot over the top of that triangle corner, and just leaving out that top bit, I find it helps to just keep it all in place better. And then I usually like to just then take that little triangle corner and tie a bow over the top of it again, just to kind of keep everything really in place. Giant bow in this case, because it is a giant scarf. And this is when you'll start to feel things kind of pulling a little bit, and it starts to kind of hurt because you're putting pressure on the rollers. So just kind of fluff around with it, see if you can kind of just loosen things if needed. Because, you know, if you are planning on sleeping with this, then, you know, you want to be semi-comfortable. Another big tip for making them more comfortable is to just have a really good pillow that is a little bit squishy. So if you have a really firm pillow that's not going to like mold to the shape of your head, then that's not going to be comfortable. Make sure it's nice and squishy and you can kind of like fold it. And then the third tip is to sleep like a princess. So this is my favorite tip. Basically, I sleep like this when I have a set in, because it kind of helps to take the pressure off your head somehow. So just sleep like you're a princess. So now that we've finished with the setting part, I just want to quickly recap on the things that are really important for you to remember. That is, number one, don't take a really massive section. Make sure it is on the smaller side, especially if you have thick hair. Thinner hair, you might be able to take a slightly wider section than what I did, but basically if your roller is not staying in very well, then you're probably taking too much hair. Tip number two is to play around with your setting spray and your water, kind of how you're setting your hair. Try doing it dry and just wetting it down, or using a setting spray. You may need to do it damp. Just start playing around with it. Tip number three is remember to roll your hair like a ribbon. So no twisting or anything like that. I want you to wrap it flat like a ribbon. Tip number four is to always use your fingers as clamps if you can, to really help kind of keep it in place as you wind. And then finally, tuck it with your comb. Tuck those ends under. It's going to help really make sure that you don't get what I call a fish hook. And a fish hook is when the curl has been kind of like pushed underneath the hair and it goes in weird directions. And if you have that, there is no way that any pomade is going to save you from frizz. So really try and make sure that all the ends are tucked really cleanly around the roller and there's no kind of like weird indentations that happen later on. So getting used to always having your comb in one hand, your roller in almost the same hand, I find is easiest. Holding your comb, using this hand to wrap it, using this finger to clamp it, and that way your comb is already here. You can just do a quick tuck when you need to. So those are the 5 tips that I really, really want you to try and remember and to practice. And I know you're probably gonna be like, Ella, this is crazy. You know, like how am I meant to make my fingers do this and hold my comb? And it will feel really weird at first, but I hope that with practice you will get it, because it does make a big difference to how your set will happen. Okay, so that is everything you need to know as to how to set your hair with flexi rods or bendy rollers or whatever you want to call them. These things. So I'm going to do a separate video for the brush out, just because I think otherwise this would be like feature length, which is a long time. Like that's even too long for me, and I think that's saying something. So you're going to have to check back in for the brush out. Make sure that you show some love, give this a thumbs up, give me a subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you very soon for the brush out tutorial.